All right, let's just jump right into it. For more than 60 years, there's one single event that has really lodged itself in the American mind: the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. It's one of those cases where the official story seems simple on the surface, but the questions it leaves behind, they're just endlessly complicated. For a lot of people, this was the exact moment a deep distrust in our institutions was really born. So today, we're going to break down the facts, the theories, and why this mystery just will not go away. First things first, let's just get grounded in the stuff nobody disputes: the cold, hard timeline of that day. It's 12:30 p.m. in Dallas, and shots ring out in Dealey Plaza. Just a half hour later, President Kennedy is declared dead at Parkland Hospital. A little while after that, around 2:38 p.m., police have a suspect in custody, a former Marine named Lee Harvey Oswald. And by that evening, he is officially charged with murdering the president. That's the skeleton of the story. Those are the basic facts. But right away, from the very moment he was caught, the man the accused threw a massive wrench into the whole story. Oswald denied everything. He famously said he was just a patsy, basically a scapegoat who was set up to take the fall. And that one statement, it blew the door wide open for 6 decades of doubt and investigation. So was he a lone nut assassin? Or was he maybe the first victim of a massive cover-up? Well, to try and answer that very question, the new president, Lyndon B. put together something called the Warren Commission. This was the first official attempt to give the nation some real, definitive answers. And after a solid 10 months of investigating, they came back with conclusions that were, well, they were absolute. They said Lee Harvey Oswald acted completely alone. He fired 3 shots from the Texas School Book Depository. They found zero, and I mean zero, evidence of any kind of conspiracy, foreign or domestic. And as for Jack Ruby, the guy who killed Oswald 2 days later, they said he acted alone too. This right here became the official story for decades. Now, to make the whole lone gunman idea work, the entire case had to balance on this one very specific idea. It's called the single bullet theory. The whole thing argues that one bullet, just one, was responsible for an incredible 7 wounds in 2 different men. Okay, so follow this. According to the commission, this one bullet enters Kennedy's back, pops out of his throat, then zips into Governor Connolly's back, comes out of his chest, completely shatters his wrist, and finally ends its journey lodged in his thigh. To a lot of people, this sounded less like ballistics and more like, well, a magic trick. And yeah, that deep skepticism has pretty much fueled the case for conspiracy ever since. It's built this powerful counter-narrative that just refuses to die. This is it. This is the question that sits right at the heart of the entire debate. It's the linchpin of the official story, and for more than half a century, it's been the #1 target for anyone who doubts it. So on one side, you have conspiracy theorists who argue, look, there is no way a single bullet can cause 7 wounds, hit bone, and then turn up on a hospital stretcher looking almost perfect. It just seems to defy the laws of physics. But the official rebuttal, which is now backed up by modern 3D modeling, says that given exactly how the men were sitting, a straight-line shot was actually possible. Then there's the actual shooting itself. Critics say firing 3 accurate shots in under 8 seconds with what was, frankly, a pretty crummy bolt-action rifle, it's next to impossible. But again, the official side points to ballistics tests and Oswald's Marine training, and they argue that, yeah, it was difficult, but for a trained marksman, it was totally plausible. Maybe the most powerful piece of evidence in this whole thing is the only actual film of the assassination, a 26-second home movie shot by a man named Abraham Zapruder. Let's zero in on one frame, frame 313. This is the moment of the fatal headshot, and what you see is JFK's head snapping violently backward into his left. For millions of people, this is the smoking gun. It's undeniable proof of a shot from the front, from that area everyone calls the grassy knoll. But modern physics has a counter for this. They call it a jet effect, a neuromuscular reaction where brain matter exiting the front of the skull actually propelled his head backward. So if we entertain this idea, if there was a conspiracy, the next logical question is, who was behind it? If Oswald really was just a patsy, who were the puppet masters pulling the strings? And let me tell you, the list of potential suspects is long. You've got the CIA, supposedly angry over the botched Bay of Pigs invasion. You've got the Mafia, who were furious that the president's brother, Robert Kennedy, was cracking down on them so hard. You have the military-industrial complex, who some believe wanted to escalate the war in Vietnam. And you even have anti-Castro Cubans who felt betrayed by JFK. And just when you thought this story couldn't get any stranger, this happens. Lee Harvey Oswald, the only man ever charged with the crime, is shot and killed on live television before he could ever stand trial. And the man who did it? A local nightclub owner with known ties to organized crime named Jack Ruby. Ruby always claimed he did it to spare Jackie Kennedy the trauma of a trial. But for a lot of people, this didn't look like an act of patriotic grief. It looked like a mob hit, conveniently silencing the one person who could have unraveled the whole thing. All of these loose ends and unanswered questions, they've left this deep, lasting wound on the country. They created this profound split between the official story and what a huge chunk of the population believes really happened. A split that, you could argue, kicked off decades of national cynicism. And I mean, this chart just says it all, doesn't it? Poll after poll, year after year, shows that over 60% of Americans believe there was a conspiracy. Now compare that to the government's official conclusion, which says there's zero evidence of one. That is a massive gap in belief. Now, to be fair, today, most forensic experts and historians, working with technology we didn't have back then, have generally landed back on the original theory. The evidence still points to Oswald as the lone shooter. It really seems like the case should be closed, right? Well, then there's this little bombshell. See, in 1979, another official government body, the House Select Committee on Assassinations, reinvestigated the whole case. And they came to a totally different, stunning conclusion. They believed the assassination was probably the result of a conspiracy. Now, it's really important to add some context here. Their conclusion was based almost entirely on some acoustic evidence, a recording that supposedly picked up a fourth shot. That evidence has since been pretty much debunked by scientists, and yet their official finding, that a conspiracy was likely, it has never been withdrawn. So the government's own official record actually contradicts itself. Which leaves us all with that one final haunting question. With the only suspect silenced forever, with contradictory official reports, the events of that day in Dallas remain the great, defining American mystery, one that keeps challenging what we think we know about power, about truth, and about the stories we're told.